A shocking moment in court. "Let my mother go and I'll put you back on your feet," the boy said. Kevin Washington was only 12, but his voice didn't sound small. It carried through the courtroom, steady, clear, and bold enough to freeze the air. At the front of the room, Judge William Carter paused mid-page, his fingers still resting on a stack of documents. For 8 years he'd lived in a wheelchair after a car accident. He'd heard plenty of wild pleas in his courtroom, but nothing like this. For a beat, everyone just stared. Then the room broke into laughter. The prosecutor smirked like he'd just been handed an easy win. A few people in the gallery shook their heads, whispering to each other as if the whole thing was entertainment. Even the court reporters leaned closer, eager for a headline. "That kid's out of his mind," someone muttered. Kevin didn't react. He didn't flinch, didn't look down, didn't shrink the way adults expected a child to shrink when they laughed at him. Instead, he calmly scanned the room like he was taking attendance. One face at a time. One reaction at a time. He remembered everything. His mother, Deborah Washington, sat at the defense table with her hands folded tightly, eyes red from crying. She'd worked as a janitor in that courthouse for 15 years. She knew every hallway, every office, every routine. She'd spent half her life keeping that building clean while people barely noticed she existed. Now they noticed. Deborah had been accused of stealing $50,000 from the courthouse administrative safe. The story was simple and convenient. The money went missing and she had access. To the people in that room, that was enough. A poor black woman working 3 jobs was the easiest suspect in the world. Judge Carter's expression hardened. "Boy," he said sharply, "this is a courtroom, not a stage. Your mother is facing serious charges. There are no miracles here." More laughter rippled through the room. Kevin met the judge's eyes and held them. "I know who stole the money," he said, quiet but loud enough to reach everyone. "And I can prove it." The laughter returned, louder this time, like the idea itself was ridiculous. "Then say it, kid," someone shouted from the back. "Go on, detective." Kevin's lips curled into a small smile, controlled, almost too calm. "First," he said, "you let my mother go. Then I'll show you how you'll walk again." The judge stared at him as if he'd heard a threat disguised as a promise. No one noticed the small digital recorder tucked inside Kevin's backpack, zipped up beside his school notebooks. No one noticed the way his eyes briefly settled on the judge's assistant, Thomas Mitchell, whose laughter had stopped the second Kevin claimed he knew the truth. Mitchell's face went pale and his fingers gripped the table's edge. Kevin noticed, stored it, and waited, because he hadn't come to beg. He'd come to expose today. The judge pushes back. Judge Carter slammed his gavel so hard the sound cracked through the courtroom like a warning shot. "Enough," he snapped. "This court will not tolerate a circus." Silence fell fast, but it wasn't respectful silence. It was the kind that waits for someone to be humiliated next. The judge's cold eyes locked on Kevin. "Your mother is accused of embezzlement. $50,000 is missing from the administrative safe. She had access. She had opportunity. That is the reality." Kevin stayed still like he was made of stone. But inside, his mind was moving fast, connecting details, replaying moments, measuring expressions. He watched Thomas Mitchell, the judge's assistant, sitting just off to the side. Mitchell's face looked calm at first glance, but Kevin saw the truth in the small things. The way his fingers tapped too quickly, the way his jaw tightened whenever the missing money was mentioned, the way he refused to look at Deborah. Kevin's mother sat with her shoulders hunched, tears quietly sliding down her face. She wasn't the kind of woman who caused trouble. She wasn't reckless. She was tired. Tired from working all day and still worrying about bills at night. Tired from knowing she could do everything right and still be treated like she was guilty by default. Kevin cleared his throat. "My mother has worked here for 15 years, he said, his voice steady. "Not one complaint. Not one warning. Why would she steal now?" The prosecutor, Mr. Davidson, leaned back in his chair and gave a short laugh, like Kevin had told a joke. "Because people take what they can when they get the chance," he said. His tone wasn't just dismissive, it was loaded, the kind of comment meant to put someone in their place without saying it outright. A few people chuckled. Some avoided eye contact. No one spoke up. Kevin felt that familiar burn in his chest, the same feeling he'd known for years. The feeling that the rules weren't the same for everyone. The feeling that some people walked into rooms already believed, while others had to prove they deserved oxygen. Deborah had raised Kevin on her own, working 3 jobs without complaint. Janitor by day at the courthouse. Office cleaner at night. Weekends at a laundromat. Kevin spent a lot of time alone, but that didn't make him careless. It made him observant. He listened when adults talked. He noticed when they assumed he didn't understand. And he learned early that survival sometimes depended on paying attention. The defense attorney, nervous, sweating, stood up. "Your Honor," he began, voice shaky, "we'd like to request more time to review. The evidence is clear." Judge Carter cut in, impatient. "Access, opportunity, and motive." "Motive?" Kevin repeated quietly. Judge Carter's lips pressed into a thin line. "Poverty is motive enough." More laughter drifted from the gallery, sharp and cruel. Kevin didn't laugh. He stared at Thomas Mitchell again and noticed something that didn't belong. An expensive watch flashing on Mitchell's wrist when he moved. The kind of watch a court assistant shouldn't be able to buy easily. Neatly trimmed nails. Designer cologne. A confidence that didn't match his salary. And now, beneath that confidence, something else was starting to show. Fear. The truth gets ridiculed. Judge Carter leaned forward, his voice hardening as if he'd already made up his mind. "Mrs. Washington," he said, "what do you have to say in your defense?" Deborah's breath shook. She wiped her face quickly as if she was ashamed of her tears. I've never stolen anything in my life," she whispered. "I work honestly. Everything I do is for my son." The prosecutor, Mr. Davidson, scoffed like he was hearing the most unbelievable thing in the world. "Honestly?" he repeated, dragging the word out. "That's an interesting definition of honest." A few people in the room laughed again, small laughs, nasty laughs, the kind that didn't even bother hiding the cruelty. Kevin's hands tightened into fists at his sides. He didn't yell. He didn't cry. But his eyes sharpened, and you could almost feel something solid forming inside him. He'd heard this tone before. He'd seen it in teachers who assumed he cheated on tests. In security guards who followed his mother through stores. In police officers who treated their apartment like a crime scene because of their zip code and their skin color. Kevin wasn't surprised by injustice anymore. What hurt was how normal it felt to everyone else. "My mother didn't steal that money," Kevin said, louder this time. "And I can prove it." The courtroom erupted. "Oh, sure you can," someone said, voice dripping with sarcasm. "With what evidence?" another person called out. "Your crayons?" More laughter rolled across the benches like a wave, and Kevin held his ground through it. He kept his eyes forward, calm and unshaken, as if the mockery couldn't reach him. But Thomas Mitchell couldn't hide the reaction. Kevin saw it clearly. The assistant stopped tapping his fingers. His whole body stiffened, and his face tightened as if Kevin's words had struck a nerve. For a second, Mitchell looked straight at him. And Kevin saw it. Fear. Pure fear. Not the fear of being falsely accused. Not the fear of being embarrassed. The fear of someone who knows they're exposed, or about to be. Kevin's expression didn't change, but inside his mind something clicked into place. It was confirmation. Judge Carter's face twisted into impatience and contempt. "Pathetic," he said. "Do you really think you can walk in here and rewrite reality with childish fantasies?" Kevin stood a little taller. "It's not fantasy," he replied. "It's the truth." The judge's voice grew sharper. "Your mother is a thief. And you are the son of a thief. Accept it and stop wasting this court's time." That sentence landed like a slap in the room. Deborah flinched. Her shoulders curled inward like she was trying to disappear. But Kevin didn't shrink. Instead he took a deep breath and smiled, slowly. Not the smile of a scared kid trying to act brave. Not the smile of someone trying to win people over. This smile was different. It was calm. Calculated. Almost unsettling. "Are you sure you want to continue like this?" Kevin asked. "Because when I prove my mother is innocent, you'll have to do your part." Judge Carter narrowed his eyes. "What part?" Kevin's smile didn't fade. "You'll have to keep your word," he said quietly. "About walking again." The room went silent for a moment, then the laughter returned. But Thomas Mitchell wasn't laughing anymore. The court tries to shut him down. The laughter in the courtroom kept going, louder than before, like people were desperate to crush the moment before it became something real. Some shook their heads. Others whispered as if Kevin was a random child who had wandered into the wrong place. But Kevin didn't move. He didn't even blink. Judge Carter's face turned hard, almost angry, like Kevin's confidence itself was an insult. He slammed the gavel again. "Enough," he barked. "Guard, remove this boy from the courtroom before I charge him with contempt." A guard took a step forward. Still, Kevin stayed where he was. He turned his head slightly, not toward the guard, but toward the judge, as if the judge was the one who needed warning. 6 months, Kevin said calmly. The room quieted, not because they respected him but because they were confused. Judge Carter narrowed his eyes. What did you say? 6 months, Kevin repeated, clearer now. That's how long I've been investigating everyone in this courtroom. That sentence hit differently. Even the people who had been laughing shifted in their seats, suddenly paying attention. The prosecutor's smirk faltered for a second. And Thomas Mitchell, Judge Carter's assistant, looked like his blood had drained out. Kevin noticed it immediately. Mitchell's breathing turned shallow. His hands shook so badly he slid them under the table, as if hiding them would make the fear disappear. Kevin kept his gaze steady. He wasn't speaking like a child anymore. He sounded like someone who had been preparing for this exact moment. 6 months of listening, Kevin continued. 6 months of watching who gets comfortable when they think no one is paying attention. The judge's assistant swallowed hard. His eyes darted toward the judge like he wanted help, or maybe like he was checking to see if the judge suspected something too. But Judge Carter didn't look at him. Carter was focused on Kevin, focused on shutting him down. This is nonsense, the judge said coldly. You are a child. You don't have evidence. You don't even know what you're talking about. Kevin didn't argue. He didn't raise his voice. He simply looked around the room again as if he was reminding everyone that he had memorized them already. My mother is being blamed because she's easy to blame, he said. She's poor. She's alone. And she doesn't have power in this building. The prosecutor scoffed. So now you're giving speeches? Kevin didn't react to the sarcasm. I'm telling you what's real, he said. Because the truth is, whoever stole that money is sitting close enough to hear my voice. That line made the room go even quieter. The guard hesitated, unsure whether to move. Judge Carter's jaw tightened. I said remove him. But Kevin lifted one hand, not aggressively, just enough to pause the moment. Before you do that, he said, ask yourself why someone is so desperate to silence me. The prosecutor laughed again, but it sounded forced now. Kevin's eyes landed on Thomas Mitchell. Mitchell couldn't look away fast enough. Kevin's voice stayed calm. Because when I speak, he said, this case doesn't stay simple anymore. And for the first time since the trial began, it felt like the court wasn't in control. Kevin raises the stakes. Judge Carter's face darkened, and the patience in his voice disappeared completely. You're testing this court, he said, each word clipped like he was holding back anger. You're not here to negotiate. You're here to watch justice be served. Kevin didn't flinch. Justice? He repeated quietly. Or convenience? The prosecutor rolled his eyes as if Kevin was exhausting. Your Honor, this is pointless. He's a kid trying to delay the inevitable. But Kevin's eyes stayed locked on the same target, Thomas Mitchell. Mitchell's posture was stiff now, shoulders pulled tight, like he was bracing for impact. The more Kevin spoke, the more Mitchell looked like a man trapped in a room with no exits. Kevin turned back to the judge. You keep saying the evidence is clear, he said. But you haven't asked the right questions. Judge Carter let out a sharp breath. And what would you know about evidence? Kevin's voice didn't rise, but it carried. I know my mother, he said. And I know this building. I've been here my whole life. I've watched people treat her like she doesn't matter. Like she's invisible, until something goes wrong. Deborah's head lowered and her lips trembled. She looked like she wanted to tell him to stop, not because he was wrong, but because she was afraid of what speaking up could cost him. Kevin glanced at her for the briefest second, just enough to let her know he was still there. Then he looked back at the judge. You said there are no miracles, Kevin continued. I'm not asking for a miracle. I'm asking for a fair look at the truth. The prosecutor gave a fake laugh. And what exactly is your truth? Kevin took a slow breath. The person who stole that money didn't need to break in, he said. They didn't need a key. They didn't need to risk being seen in the hallway. Mr. Davidson waved a hand. And your point is? My point, Kevin said, is that it had to be someone the safe trusted. The judge stared at him. The safe. Kevin nodded once. People, he said. Not just locks. The courtroom shifted again. The laughter was fading now, replaced by something uncomfortable, like curiosity mixed with irritation. Judge Carter leaned forward. If you have something to say, say it. Right now. Kevin's eyes narrowed slightly. If I say everything right now, he replied, my mother still gets convicted first. The story stays the same. People move on. The judge's voice sharpened. You're playing games. Kevin shook his head. No, he said. I'm protecting her. That caught the room. Even the defense attorney, who had been sitting frozen, looked up with surprise. Kevin stepped a fraction closer, still calm. You want me removed? He asked. Fine. But before you do, understand this. He pointed, not dramatically, not aggressively, just a small motion toward the tables. I'm not guessing, he said. I'm not imagining. I'm not making this up. The judge's assistant swallowed hard. Kevin continued, I've been collecting proof for 6 months. Conversations, patterns, movements, things people say when they think no one's listening. Now the room was dead silent. Kevin's voice grew colder, sharper. And if you convict my mother today, he said, you're going to do it knowing you ignored a chance to hear the truth. Judge Carter's hands tightened around the gavel. Are you threatening me? Kevin didn't blink. No, he said. I'm warning you.